So, I must say that I am privileged to be joined by this group of panelists, starting with Agnes and the Shah Rocket Fund, who I've come to know really only in the past few weeks, actually. And we've become very fond of what the Shah Rocket Fund does, and she'll talk to you about that as well. Abhi from Sandbox, I've also known for quite some time, as Sandbox is an investor and recently acquired many of the companies that we work with from the kidSAFE standpoint. And then I just recently met Leo, who's not here all the way from South America, but is from South America, who also has been kind to join us. He is from SAATCHiNVEST. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yeah.
SAATCHiNVEST. Why is the I lowercase, by the way?
It's just part of the design.
It's just part of the design, okay.
So SAATCHiNVEST
doesn't mean you're investing in kids or anything like that, no? No? Okay. Well, I do believe SAATCHiNVEST has recently invested in, is it Kano? Kano? No. Tech will save us, okay. There you go, close enough. Cool. So thanks for joining, guys. I'll just have you give a brief intro. We'll start with you, Leo. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
Hello, everybody.
Your spare time, and also the investments you've made in this space in particular.
Yeah, so I'm Leo Castellanos. Hello, everyone. So I'm a partner at SAATCHiNVEST. We are a small venture capital fund here in London. It's part of an advertising agency called SAATCHi. So it's a global advertising agency. And we invest across different sectors. We're actually sector agnostic. It's not ad tech. But we do care about design, so that's the reason for the capital, the lowercase I. And so we've made investments in EdTech, but we've also made investments in mobile, e-commerce, IoT, artificial intelligence, comms, and the two.
Can you tell us some of the names of the companies you've invested in?
Yes, and the two investments we've made in this space are Technology Will Save Us, which we've been with that company pretty much since the beginning. So we were the first institutional money in. We've been with the business for about 4 years. And more recently, last year, we invested in another EdTech company, also a really exciting company called Mrs. Wordsmith. We invest kind of first institutional money in, so seed to Series A, roughly around 300,000, 400,000 pounds initial ticket.
Abhi, how about you? Sandbox.
Yeah, Sandbox. So we basically started 3 years ago. We've pretty much focused ourselves on investing in kids and media and education. So, I mean, audience is only kids, and then media and education has been our key focus. We've so far in 3 years done, I mean, we are very, very slow. I would say we've done only 12 investments, of which actually 7 we are 100% owning as businesses. So we sort of like them. We bought the businesses out, and we invest and operate. I mean, you know, so we are operating those 7 businesses, and the remaining 5, actually 2 have gone down already, part of the game. And 3 are doing really well. Some of the companies I can tell you, I mean, Hopster, we've invested in Tiny Bop. We bought a business called Poptropica. We've bought a business called Funbrain, which we've bought business, which actually you would know, all COPPA compliant. And recently, only like 2 weeks ago, we bought a business called Curious World. It belonged to HMH. We literally bought it. It was announced today and last week. And comes with the famous Curious George character. So very excited about seeing what we do with it in a very competitive market, which Nick and others were talking about literally an hour earlier. So let's see.
Agnes, you're not a VC. You made sure that I would not call you a VC. Tell us why.
So I run one of the investment funds in Canada. So in Canada, I'm sure if you're been on the television side, you'd know that we have some really great, we call them subsidies, and in a sense they are, and I think Nick mentioned that too as far as how we finance content in Canada with tax credits and other types of funding. I represent the private side. We do We get our money from actually cable, which, as you know, is going down in revenues everywhere. But we are, as a private fund, we're also an investor. We're a not-for-profit, though, and we're like a social finance. And I like to put it that way because we are about a return on investment, because our sustainability and how we support the industry is based on how well our programs do. We focus on kids, also global. So we do a lot of international co-productions. I want to say that, too. So we're not just Canadian-based, but that's where obviously where the money comes from and who our main clients are. And we invest in kids' digital linear content. So basically anything for kids in any age range, demographic. And I like to say we have a balanced portfolio. We invest in content that's specific for Canada, and we invest in content that's global. And we like to see content that gives kids a full experience. So we do absolutely invest in digital pieces, games, apps, all kinds of technology. And we're always looking for. And that's where we get to take the risk. We get to look at some interesting content that and test and help our producers find new ways that kids can find them.
Agnes, can you tell us some of the content you've invested in?
We've invested in, I'm trying to think of what you'd know, but we invested in a really great television program, and one of our international partners was Disney, and it was called Slugterra. And its digital game has gone, it's actually, we make more money off the game than we do the television show. So that one's been very successful. And the next step is one that's global. If you have any kids that like to dance, they have, it's also television. BBC airs it, and it's done extremely well. And it has its dance app where the teachers, your favorite teacher can teach you how to dance.
Is there an American or an equivalent outside of Canada similar to the Shai Rocket Fund, a non-profit fund that invests in kids' media you're aware of?
I actually don't think I know of any other fund that does that in the world.
Wow,
there might be
so why Canada?
Well, it's part of I mean, Canada still, even though the world is changing rapidly in revenues, and in Canada, the kids channels, it's been very difficult over the last few years, so we don't see a lot of it, but there's still a lot of money in our system, and our government provides a lot of support. And we've just been very fortunate that the way it was structured, and it was certainly not structured intentionally to be that way, that it allows enough flexibility to grow as the industry changes.
Anyone here familiar with a similar fund here in Okay, so let's come back to you, Leo, and then we'll go down the line, or as they say here in London, down the queue. Most appealing and unique attributes of any kid tech startup, so let's take Tech Will Save Us, and Mrs. Wordsmith, that you've invested in. What has been focused on the most important aspect of that startup that you had not seen before that specifically drove you to invest?
So it's, and going back to actually the founders of these businesses, it's just like the unsurmountable passion they had when they were launching these businesses. Just truly passionate about the products they were making, because they were making them to start with for their own kids, and then they saw a business market opportunity and they decided to exploit it. But in the cases of both Technology Will Save Us and Mrs. Wordsmith, both founders are just super driven, trailblazing people that will not stop at anything. And I mean, running startups is not easy, and the founders of these businesses are just amazing.
Wouldn't you say, isn't that true with any startup founder that's had success, that they're super passionate about what they're doing? I mean, is there anything in particular about their tech, about their product?
Yeah. In general, yes. But I think you guys might know better than I do. But it seems to me, I mean, in the case of SAATCHiNVEST, we've made two investments in EdTech, and both businesses are run by mums or parents. So I think that's just the additional level of passion and drive by the founders was there because they really cared about their kids.
Gotcha. So making the product for your kids as a starting stepping stone. How about you, Abhi? Most important aspect in the startups?
I think I can list a few. one will be tough. So basically, I mean, if we look at our portfolio, I think we've been a sort of sucker for IP. So brand name, a bit of scale. So we've pretty much, invested in different businesses which, at some point or the other have scaled more than 1 million audience, at least have a proven business model, at least making money. So whether they are not profitable is not the question, but at least they are. The market is, the model is proven and it works. It's not that, okay, it's in a very, very early stage. So we do like to, go into slightly more, if I say on a VC curve, a bit more mature businesses from that perspective. We also like businesses which can translate into different industries. So like if the business is direct to consumer, but then can make a path into school, or is right now in a B2B to B2C and can go into like different model, we like it. Or even the commercial model, if we can, there's potential to change the commercial model from advertisement to subscription or vice versa, like those things. So we've been kind of in the portfolio where the fundamental is that it's already a scale. It's not, that's the key for us. If it's not scale, we would let it be invested by seed and other rounds. And secondly, I mean, if we do invest, we take a meaningful stake. So for some founders, that's like not important, like not the case. But for us, it's the case. I mean, we want to make sure that we get meaningful stake. We can, sort of add a bit of value and also see some exit path at some point, So
it sounds like having some flexibility on where the product can be taken from perhaps one vertical, let's say consumer, to schools.
Yep.
Is a focal point for you. You've invested quite a bit in edutainment and educational-oriented.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything we've invested is in sort of education or to do with education. So that for us has been very clear, but with a very media lens to it. So like we like video, we like games, we like books, so sort of very media lens and not, we haven't invested in any product which is literally, let's teach you this curriculum and this, so it's not education from going into a classroom, that perspective. It's more using the combination to invest in businesses, combination of, as we call it, edutainment. So let's entertain the kids while they learn.
So Leo, from your side, we've got super passionate, but also creating for your own kids. With you, Abhi, we've got flexibility in business model, but mature and education, but with a media focus as well. Agnes, how about you? When you look at content, when you evaluate content, what is the single most important aspect that you look for that you haven't seen before when you invest?
I haven't seen. I was going to say we have because we do a wide range of investing, and the purpose of investment is different. It's not always about a return, but sometimes it is. It depends on what comes to us. But I think that the number one thing that we look for in anything that we do is a really great experience for kids that would stand out. And I think that's something that goes into, even if we do small development pieces, to a much larger investment in something that's more commercial. And what the producer can bring to us that provides that unique experience. I say unique and not innovative because that's a really, in our world, it makes people to not think about their audience. So I just want something really great for their kids, and that would bring strategic partners. I think that's really key for us, because the strategic partners for us is helping us reach our audience today and in not always a traditional manner. How are kids consuming their media? And it's not just television, linear, audio-visual content. It's full experiences. So what gets us really excited is when a concept comes, and you can use the term 360, but it's really, again, how it's relevant to the content and what's really exciting. And I can just give 3 examples quickly, or you know.
We'll come back to more examples, but great experience for kids is the key differentiator. So how many people in the audience are moms and are creating a product for their children? Leo, moms and dads, I'm sorry. Leo focused on moms. So.
Moms and dads.
Moms and dads, my bad. Leo, you taking notice, Leo?
Yeah, quite a few, I think.
Awesome. Well, you guys need to talk after the panel. Edutainment. Mature edutainment. So Abhi, you're in trouble.
This is why we've only invested in 12 so far.
Okay, cool. And great experience for kids. That's it? Oh, you guys really believe in your products. Great experience for kids. Okay, cool. So let's move on. So we've highlighted some of the key attributes that you look for, unique attributes. Let's talk a little bit about other factors you consider when investing in this industry. We heard from you, Abhi, about maturity. But what about some other ordinary VC considerations? Solving a problem. Doesn't need to be solving a problem. Doesn't need to be super scalable. We can start with you, Leo.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the other considerations, yes, absolutely. So, what problem you're solving? How big is the opportunity? How driven is the team? And how good is the product? And so when we always actually we're B2C people. We actually have done a couple of investments in B2B, but we're really no consumer, being part of an advertising agency, and so we know good product when we see it, and for us the key thing is that it has to be beautiful and simple. Just solve a problem in a beautiful but very, very simple way. It goes back to the mantra, the head of the organization, which is it's the brutal simplicity of thought. It's really easy to complicate things. It's far more difficult to keep them simple and beautiful. And so most of our investments have that. And certainly the two companies that we invested in, the kind of products they've built and the way they engage the audiences is just outstanding. And it certainly has a global potential, global reach.
Were you here for the talk from Pigsby, from Filippo Jacob?
No, I'm afraid.
No, okay. Well, he's trying to teach kids Bitcoin and blockchain. What do you think about that? Is that simple?
I think it's simple.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's what he thinks too. So you guys are aligned in that respect. How about you, Abhi? Some other ordinary VC considerations?
I mean, I think, again, with the edutainment, and again, being very, very open and honest, I think you can always say, yeah, it solves the problem of education and entertainment. But, to be honest with you, I mean, what we are generally looking for from a VC perspective is engagement. I mean, is it long enough? Is the kid spending enough time with the app? For us, that itself manifests into many things, especially if it's a edutainment product. So you look at Tiny Bop, kids spend north of 20 minutes on the app, Poptropica 26, Hopster 30, and so on. So you see the numbers and you say, okay, that's the amount of screen time the kid is spending on a day. For us, it's not solving a problem, but at least it's leading to a place where kid is consuming good content, which the previous panel did discuss in detail about what the meaning of good content is. So that's how we look at it.
Level of engagement. Agnes? Any other considerations? I know you wanted to bring up a couple other things, but any other considerations you look for?
We were talking about problem solving, and I was just smiling, thinking the biggest problem that we solve is that people need money. so I laugh, but that really is what we do, and it's like what we all do. But where the problem is, especially in the kids' world, is that we tend to take less risk when I think, and seeing how things are financed in kids because of the limitations that you have with advertising, the limitations that you have just because of the market and being children, frankly. So taking a risk in content in the grown-up world tends to be easier. So we solve that problem by being able to take risks and not always, and understanding there's going to be a lot of content that's going to fail. As long as it is, like I said, respectful to kids and really something that will help enrich their lives, even if it's just laughing, right through to, we do edutainment too, a lot of it in educational. So as long as it's being respectful to to the kids, that's.
About the quality of the content? I mean, how much you look at the quality of the content itself?
Well, that's number one.
Number one. So quality of content. What about play aspect? I mean, it sounds like they're laughing. That's good.
Well,
Does there need to be
quality
some-
test includes all of that. I mean, we have our pillars, and that would include the engagement, that includes, well, is it age appropriate, and that includes the level, and that it is, you know, age appropriate being, you know, challenging enough or not, you know, or too much, and ensuring that the content is, is of high quality, that it's giving them an experience that's respectful. And I mean that in animation and everything, in the outcome.
How about the global aspect of it, the global reach of the content across borders? How important is that when you look at content?
Well, I think cross-border in any business today is critical, and I think that in the kids' world, the best thing that happens is when somebody makes really great content, and kids around the world enjoys it, and that also then reaps the benefits of return. So the global reach is great, but our investments, like I said, are diverse. Some things, you know, some content we invest in, we know is very specific to a region, and understand as long as it's doing what it's intended to do for kids in that region, whether it's language or whether it's culture, then that served its purpose. But if it is something that is intended for more commercial or outside of the educational or the specific cultural aspect, then we do, then the global is critical.
We've seen through a lot of the products that we raffled off today, including some of the robotics and coding-oriented products, the computer kits, that the schools are an important aspect of investment as well. Do you find in each of your organizations that there needs to be a potential to bring the product and sell it to schools as a critical investment pillar?
In our case, it has just been absolutely critical. Because it's just the right place to start driving engagement at a mass scale, and so establishing early partnerships with schools and kid clubs is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, again, taking a couple of cases here, Tiny Bop, when we invested, it was an app. In the App Store, you could download it, you can play. Slowly, they've pivoted towards a school product, which bundles all the apps, now reaching thousands of schools. So yes, we've seen that instance. We look at Pop Tropica, Teacher Vision, some of the other products we've invested in get equal traction from school. Is it a school product per se? No. I mean, at least some of the others. But is it used in school? Absolutely. So for us, whether it's part of a curriculum, whether we go through a cycle of selling to district and state and so on and get it in the school, less critical than, yes, it can be consumed in school, it's safe, it's providing teachers with some supplementary information that they can use to run a classroom, because teachers are never going to replace how they teach laws of physics. But if they can get a good video which explains it in an easy way, or a game which they can construct together and show the real-life examples, I think that for us solves the problem.
Not only that, it's just at the same time, apart from introducing to a large scale, it also helps drive up engagement, constant engagement with your target audience there.
Agnes, I know you guys have made some investments into digital platforms that have a social element to it, or even a health-related element to it, like the Mowgli's, for example. Can you talk about that and what sort of interests you have in that aspect of investment?
Well, we definitely are attracted to properties that have some ability to be in or come from curriculum. So we invest in content that either comes from books that have been part of the curriculum, and obviously, when we look at the content, again, it's varied, and the majority of what we invest in for kids is educational to a certain degree, even if it is purely fictional or narrative. So again, teaching kids something, whether it's emotional or educational. But we do look for properties that are really interesting that expand that. And one property that we invested recently, we've obviously done the television program as well. But a program called Dino Dana, and it's one of our educational broadcasters in Canada. It's also on Nickelodeon, and we are actually now it's on Amazon, because that's what happens. And now invested in their VR project that's going to be in museums across the country. So that's going to be a whole educational piece that's going to be part of teaching kids about dinosaurs in a VR experience through there. And, within, it's going to start with the Royal Ontario Museum. So that's a very interesting one for us. It's a bit outside the box.
Very cool. The last factor I want to talk about before we start to share some concluding thoughts, hardware versus software. Let's start with you, Leo. Do you think hardware is...
I've got mixed feelings about that.
Let's hear them. Share them, please.
So investing in hardware, everybody will tell you, is a bit of a nightmare. Just the economics of hardware, money goes fast. You spend money a lot faster than doing something digital. Having said that, if you've got, our two businesses are partly hardware, partly software. One of them slightly more on the hardware, clearly on the hardware element, and once they've made it through, they've made it through, and but it just goes with saying that hardware takes a lot longer and it's more difficult to make it work.
Okay. Abhi, what do you feel?
I mean, our portfolio would suggest only digital, so software, but I feel that, if there's a great opportunity out there around engagement, which is even hardware or hardware combined with software, we would not shy away from that. I mean, we have been looking for people who are doing something in VR, and that solution would be just not hardware, software only. It'll be a combination of the two. The challenge is that people who've scaled are companies like Google and so on. You can't, look at investing in them apart from buying some few stocks on the stock market. But at the same time, there's less companies which are coming out with a meaningful solution and scaling at the same time, Everybody's in the experimentation mode, and that's the challenge. There's a lot of buzzword floating around, AI, Bitcoin, this and that, but I think, has the technology matured? And at the end of the day, engagement is what we look at all the time to see. That's the key fundamental criteria, whether it's hardware, software, or a combination.
It's also a question that it really very much depends on what stage you're investing in. It's like if you're investing in really, really early stage, hardware is going to be far more difficult than if you're doing so at growth. Sure. You've got a company that's up and running and it's got a healthy margin.
So you like hardware at the growth stage, not at the early stage.
We've done it,
right.
But and it's great, but it is hard work to make it work.
Got it. Agnes, have you done anything in the hardware arena or seen some things in the Canadian market?
We see lots, but no.
That's not yet hardware. Okay. All right, well, I'd like to just get your thoughts on the last topic here, which is what's hot, what will stay hot, and what's dying, and why. And let's start with traditional online, mobile, social gaming platforms. Leo, let's have you share your thoughts. Do you think that, first of all, that area is hot? We're seeing that it is. Fortnite.
I think if you had to pick, I'd say probably mobile stays, social stays, connected toys and robotics stays, wearables stays, and AR and VR are increasingly going to become a very important part of the edtech scene.
So you think everything's hot?
No. I think traditional online is not hot.
Traditional online is not, okay.
But if you had to, clearly, what's hotter is AR and VR right now, and a little bit on the IoT bit.
Got it. What do you think about wearables, Abhi? Smartwatches for kids. Do you think those have a chance of breaking through?
I think everything has a chance. I feel that, everything here will survive forever. Nothing is going to die. The question is scale. Like, are they really going to scale in next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? When we started Sandbox 3 years ago, we said, let's invest in VR. And 3 years hence, there's still, let's invest in VR. And there's nobody out there you can say, oh, let's invest here. Or there are many out there, but then again, it's like the scale issues. So at times you feel like, okay, 3 years hence, what has not changed? I mean, the device cost has gone down. Hopefully Facebook's new device will bring it further down and, so on. Everybody's working towards it, but the issue is scale and adoption. I mean, schools are talking about it all the time. When we meet teachers, they say, yeah, bring it on. It's the adoption. So till something really starts to, take off, I would say it's still going to be, I mean, wearable for kids is out there. You can go buy different kind of watches. You can buy, and you can make your own with the, yes, but the question is the scale again, and are they going to be mainstream products or are they just going to be niche products which will be, in few thousands? That's the question.
Agnes, for you on the content side, where do you think content's going to stay hot across these platforms?
Well, I'm agreeing. I think it crosses right over. I'm agreeing with everything that was just said because all of this is happening. It is scale and it is also affordability. And I think that as technology and there's that earlier discussion of how quick are you going to make the content, how fast does it get out there, how long does it take, and how traditional it is. I think that we're going to see a lot of all of that, and the ones that will excel are the ones that gives experiences that are going to be able to build a brand that kids will recognize and families recognize. So I think for us, we're excited to see, and we've invested in some, and I think it's going to be it's going to take a few years.
Let's close with two quick, easy questions for you. Aside from the obvious, what would each of you tell the folks in this audience that are startup founders, aside from the obvious, like be persistent, passionate, etc., what would you say the non-obvious tip to the startups in this room? You? Non-obvious.
Non-obvious. Well, I think everything's pretty obvious. I mean, from a VC perspective, but
you got to dig deep for this one. That surprised you?
Look, I think, just look for simplicity. I don't know if it's that obvious. I think it's not that obvious because a lot of times you actually get people to just pitch you for about 20 minutes and you have no idea what they're doing, and when you ask them, they seem more confused than you. So just try to keep it very simple and just focus on what problem you're solving, for whom, and try to do it beautifully in a very simple way.
Simplicity. Abhi?
Again, sorry, this is a tough one.
Non-obvious.
I mean, I think from my perspective, there's just two things. One, product market fit. Make sure that the product fits. That there's a need, because
that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like and the second one is basically, I mean, it's a simple answer. Second one, just sort out your LTV and CAC equation. Simple. If you can do those two things, I think you don't need to worry about any complication. There is nothing else.
Agnes?
So I think that's a hard question too, but I think that I would say that it's not obvious, and it's not just in Canada, that there's a lot of money out there that we don't think about. And as it got tougher in our business, I got to see some really great business models that came in with brand partners that weren't putting content in, but just were believing in kids' content, like Ubisoft and Let's Talk Science. And so I think if you're believing if you know what you're pitching, because that's important, and you believe in it, and looking for really interesting different partners, I think there's a lot of interest that we don't even think about to make really great apps and content for children specifically.
There's money out there. That's your response. I will share just one thought on this, and then we'll close with one more question, and that is, kidSAFE gets a lot of products that come through our offices for review and compliance reviews and certifications. And I can't tell you how many of the startup products we get just don't work. It's that simple. They just don't work. They have buggy issues. Even in their MVP, past their MVP stage, they just don't work. Now, maybe that's obvious. I don't know, Leo, would you consider that obvious? Well, yeah, I would think so, but it seems like it's not too obvious because we still get more.
Shai, we said it's a tough question.
Yeah, so it's got to work. It's got to do what it purports to do, and sometimes that can be a challenge, especially when you're dealing with hardware and software combinations. Last question for you guys, and we'll give you a big thank you for being here. Favorite tech product? Doesn't have to be kids. Favorite tech product?
Doesn't have to be kids.
Doesn't have to be kid focused.
The first Nintendo.
First Nintendo.
Yeah.
All right.
Apple Watch.
I still love my iPhone. I do. It's basic,
Okay.
but I know it's like,
So you actually, Leo, you gave a non-obvious answer, I think. But yeah, appreciate that. Nintendo, which one? Which Nintendo? The very original, or
Yeah, the grey box.
Duck Hunt and Super Mario, popular games. Okay, well, with that, appreciate your contributions and your input, and let's thank them for their effort.
I'd just like to ask Abhi, what is RTB and particularly what is CAC?
I should have demystified customer acquisition cost. And lifetime value. I mean, that equation is the thing, I mean, we look for.
I was wondering if you guys could speak to what you guys think about Amazon Alexa for kids. It wasn't discussed much today, but I think, is that something you guys think could be a very big thing for kids moving forward?
I'll start. I mean, I think he'll be the best person to answer given he's invested in hardware businesses. But I mean, these are another platform, right? So I mean, from our perspective, can we use them for, like, educational use? Absolutely. How well can we integrate our content into some of those? That's the question that remains. I mean, there is still. I mean, we've seen enough evidence that Apple TV is a great product, but we haven't seen any evidence that any educational app has really made money off Apple TV yet. And when you look at Alexa or some other technologies which are not even visual, I mean, it just raises a different question, about how do you really integrate some of the kids' content in there. I mean, if it's about lullaby, play a lullaby, Alexa, and it helps your kids sleep or learn ABCD, fine, But does it go deeper into? And if yes, is the answer beyond Google? Eventually it'll give you a response from one of the search engines, and how do you solve the discoverability challenge? So there are more than a few questions that still need to be answered. And yes, if you're Amazon, you've got a large collection of content already, and you can serve one of that. But how does a entrepreneur fit into their product into that? That's.
So I think as an investor, if you take the view that Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google are going to do it, then you stop investing. Because, yes, they do have the potential doing pretty much everything that all these companies are doing. And so it comes down to focus and to opportunity. And I think, going back to your question about Alexa, well, it's not just hardware, it's not just software, it's actually a platform. And so I think it is an opportunity for companies out there deploying content that might be taken up.